Sige lang tayo. Sige na, ako magre-record na. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Today, we are going to hear some important notes about writing a thesis. These notes will give you a background on how you are going to formulate, construct your problem, and other important points in discussing Chapter 1. Chapter 1 refers to the problem and its background. The first question that you are going to answer is, how do you know that your problem is researchable? What is a research problem? So, before starting your thesis, you have to find ways and means of identifying a research problem. What is a research problem? It is the process which begins with a problem which is perceived to be a difficulty. It is a feeling of discomfort with the way things are or a discrepancy within. And the problem should deal with what should be and what it is about. Second question that you are going to answer. How does one know that a problem is researchable? A problem is researchable when 1. There is no known answer solution to it, that a gap in knowledge exists. 2. There are possible solutions, however, the effectivity of that solution is untested or unknown yet. 3. There are answers to solutions, the possible result of which may seem or may be factually contradictory. So these are some of the problems which you can consider that it is researchable. Because as research writer, you have to identify that your problem is really a problem and that problem will help in one way or another improve your profession. Say for instance in education, that problem will improve classroom teaching, classroom performance, and classroom strategies. Next, where are you going to get your problem? Meaning, the sources of problem. There are various sources from which you as an investigator draws problem. They are as follows. First, from your personal experiences. As writers and as adult, you have so much encountered experiences. What are these experiences? Experiences of difficulty, experiences from your profession, experiences from your life, experiences in the society, and others. Next, from your line of interest or area of specialization. So as writer, you have to deal on problems that is within your line of interest, within your capacity, within your expertise. Because you can write so many things if it is within your area of interest or area of specialization. Third, problems that arises from your attendance of symposia, dialogues, or even ordinary meetings and conversation. Fourth, problems may also be taken from journals, reading of books, readings from thesis or dissertation. 5. Issues and concerns which require scientific investigation coming from radio, television, movies, newspapers, and magazines that require immediate solution. And lastly, You can also get problems from theories that need further validation or rejection. Another that you are going to tackle on as researcher. How do you know that your problem is a good researchable problem? You can have your problem, or you can identify that your problem is a good research problem when you have chosen a good research problem when it is a critical job. However, it is not surprising that the students find difficulty in choosing a topic as a source of their research. Another, how do you know that your research has clear objectives? The research objectives aims these are the aims or goals which are expected to be attained at the end of the research process. Good research objectives should not flow only from the identified research problem, but should also have the following characteristic. Characteristic number one, the objective should be stated in simple language. Avoid using high sounding words which are not understandable by the reader. As much as possible, write and use simple languages. Second, that your objectives should be measurable. Now, why measurable? Because you have your time limit. You have enrolled in the first semester and you should end also in that first semester. Next, objective. Your objective should be attainable. Why attainable? Because you are going to write your chapter 5. You are going to summarize. You are going to make conclusions. And after the conclusions, you have to recommend ways and means to solve your problem. Another objective of your research, it must be result oriented. And lastly, that your research should be time bounded. Assumptions. What are assumptions? Assumptions are clear statements of facts related to your research problem, which are presumed to be true on the basis of observation and experiences, although not actually verified. They are stated so as to provide foundation which the study will proceed and an additional basis for validation of variables of interest in the study. Assumptions do not require testing nor confirmation. You can easily make your assumptions by looking at your statement of the problem. Meaning to say, if you have five statements of the problem, you should have also five or more assumptions. I have he- I have here some examples of assumptions which investigators use in their studies. Number one, people have certain attributes toward anything. Second, the subjects under study belong to a certain socio-economic stratification. And another assumption is administrators or managers experience job related to tension. Another part, another part of chapter 1 is the significance of the study. The significance of this study relate or states the importance why you have conducted your study. So you have to state why you have conducted that research. So what are the significance of this study? Researchers expresses persuasions about the value of their work. so as to get the approval of the screening committee and some support coming from funding institution. This can be presented in different perspectives. Therefore, it is best for the writer to state all the significant contributions it may serve after the study. So in writing your thesis, you have to identify who will benefit from your study. Say for instance, the students, the teachers, the administrators, the parents, the community, and of course, the future researchers who will use your research as a reference for their research. So those are the significance or importance of the study. Another part which may be discussed in chapter 1 are the scope and delimitation of the study. As writers and researchers, you should discuss the coverage of your study. The scope refers to to whom, to when is the study conducted, and of course, as what I've mentioned, the coverage of your study. Say for instance, the school, the community, the grade level, the teachers, the personnel, and even the administrators. These are the statements which you are going to state in your scope. And the limitation refers to the limit of your study. In other words, to sum it up, the scope defines the coverage or boundaries of the study in terms of the area or locality, subjects, and population covered, the location or period of the study, and the research issues or concerns to which the investigation is focused. And lastly, and lastly, the definition of terms. Here, the writer will identify terms which may be difficult for the readers to comprehend or to understand. So, this section facilitates understanding of the problem investigated, for here, their key concepts are defined. 1. Conceptual definition of the word, which refers to the universal meaning of the word as understood by the people at large. And second, the operational definition, which refers to the concept or meaning as used in the study. So, for a clearer perspective, for a clearer view of chapter 1, I have here sample of how chapter 1 is written. So, in this particular sample, I have here the title. So, this is the problem stated by the researchers. Perception of teachers on the passage of divorce law in the Philippine setting at Bagong Silang High School, Caloocan. Now look in this problem. Is it specific? Yes, it is specific because it mentions only the perception of teachers. On what subject matter? Perception of teachers on the passage of law. Where? At Caloocan, at Bagong Silang High School, Caloocan City. So it's very clear, no? We have identified who will be tested, the teachers, on what matter, on the passage of law, and where it is at Bagong Silang High School, Caloocan City. Take note that you have to limit the number of the words used in the problem for 18 to 21 words. So, if you are going to count and there are still spaces, you can also include there when you have when you are going to write your study. So you can include school year 2020 to 2021. But first, you have to count the words. It must have 18 to 21 words only. So chapter 1, this is a sample. Now look at the word chapter 1. Letter C is capitalized and use the Arabic number 1. Below it, we have the problem and its background. So in writing the title of chapter 1, take note again that it is written all in capital letters. So it says the problem and its background, under which you are going to write now the introduction or background of divorce law in the Philippines. So state, why divorce law? So state first when there is a valid marriage before you are going to state divorce. So I started my chapter 1, the background of my chapter 1 by writing marriage is an inviolable social institution between a man and a woman. It is a permanent union between a man and a woman who entered in accordance with law, also with God's power. However, in spite of its inviolable social institution, there are several cases of separation of valid marriages. And with this, the researchers thought of knowing the perception of teachers on the passage of divorce law in the Philippines. So I have included divorce law because there are here in the Philippines, there are already several cases of separation, and men and women just want to separate. However, at the moment, there is no divorce law in the Philippines. So we will just ask the perception of teachers on divorce law because teachers are the prime movers and also the those who can talk to students and parents as well. Now, under the problem and its background, the second topic is the statement of the problem. So you can state the general problem. And the general problem is you can write this study aims to determine the perception of teachers on the passage of divorce law in the Philippines at Bagong Silang High School, Caloocan City, school year 2017-2018, which meant to say that this research was written way back school year 2017-2018. After the general problem, now you have to specify your specific problem. How are you going to write it? Start with a paragraph and write specifically, then write a comma. It's so to answer the following questions. 1. What is the demographic profile of the respondents according to as to age, as to gender, as to civil status, as to educational attainment. So, the answers of the teachers may differ because of their age, maybe because of their gender, maybe because of their maybe because of their educational qualification, and so on and so forth. Now, let's now proceed to the general problem. And the general problem states, what is the perception of the respondents? The respondents are the teachers. So you will just write not teachers, but you will write respondents in the passage of divorce law in the Philippines in terms of 2.1, grounds of divorce, 2.2, process of filing divorce, and 2.3, costing of divorce. So under grounds of divorce, you can identify, is it a ground on adultery? Is it a ground on the gender of the couples, and so on and so forth. Next, what problems are encountered by the respondents in the implementation of divorce law in the Philippines? As you all know, say for instance that divorce may be implemented in the Philippines, these are the problems which encountered which may be encountered by the passage of law. Problems on the family, problems on the cultural and religious belief, and also problems, and also several problems like financial problems and so on and so forth. And lastly, what suggestions may be offered to minimize, if not to eliminate, divorce in the Philippines? So after the statement of the problem, as what I have discussed earlier, you have to make your assumption. Again, assumptions are a statement which may answer your problem. Again, we have five specific problems. So let's have your assumption as follows. So you will write, based on the specific problems stated, the researchers assumed the following. What are your assumptions? You assume that the data that you are going to gather are valid and reliable. So assume that. Next, the respondents may be described in terms of age, gender, status, and educational attainment. Third, there are different perceptions of the respondents in the passage of divorce law in the Philippines in terms of grounds of divorce, process of divorce, and costing of divorce. Fourth, the respondents' perceptions affect them in terms of financial, psychological, and social life. And of course, teachers may suggest solutions to offer, if not to minimize, if not to eliminate divorce in the Philippines. So, for now, for your significance, also write who will benefit from your study. Of course, the students, of course, the teachers, and so on and so forth. So, by now, I hope that you are ready to write on your chapter 1, because chapter 1 is the most important part of doing your research. And for that, thank you for listening. God bless you all, and congratulations for your graduation as early as today. God bless you.